Okay, so welcome. We're at Bodhicitta Dakini Monastery, and today I'm doing a bit of an impromptu talk, but I thought I'd just talk about emptiness as fullness. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what emptiness is. Emptiness is a really bad translation of this word shunyata. But it's an even worse translation I've heard is voidness. Yeah, nothing, like a big black hole. And people can easily take that as nihilism. Like nothing exists. I don't exist, you don't exist. And on an ultimate level, that is partially true. But emptiness is fullness. Emptiness on the relative level is interdependent origination. This is because that is a vast expanse, a vast web of interbeing, mutuality, meaning what are my non-self elements that create the intersection of my existence in this present moment. A beautiful, miraculous, but also fragile coming together of phenomena, but only what is the difference between you and death? One breath, one little fine, I don't know what that thing in the heart is, that the pump, but it's so fine, it's so tiny, that little pump. If it just stops, no more you. So what are our non-self elements? The water, the earth, the farmers who grow our food, the roads we drive on, the people who built our houses, the people who fought so that children could go to school and not work in mines and factories. We are the intersection of all that is past, and we are the intersection that will influence the future also, in a vast web of mutuality. And we often forget this. We section ourselves off and kind of live in our own head, and we've lost touch with nature. We've lost touch with even community can become a challenge. And when you live in your head and you're not in touch with reality, things as they are, it's easy to forget the impact we're having on the earth, the impact we're having on each other, even by ignoring each other, the impact we're having. As someone who walks around in weird clothes, sometimes I just try not to look at people, because it takes a lot of confidence just to move through the world looking this different. But what I've noticed a lot lately is sometimes, especially in Melbourne, if I walk around Melbourne and I look at people, I realize they're actually looking at me with openness and curiosity. And if I smile, they smile back, which I find really interesting. Because in the past I would just avoid people's eyes because I didn't want to have to deal with them, othering me, right? So the basic building blocks of this self are the 5 skandhas, form, sensation, feeling, perception, mental factors, and consciousness. Like an onion, an onion seems fairly solid, and if you cut it, it'll make you cry. But you look for the onion and you peel away one layer and another layer and another layer and another layer, and finally, where is the onion? The onion is many layered, like the self, like existence. And in these polarized times, it's also easy to other someone and solid enemy, solid friend, solid stranger, when in fact friends become strangers, strangers become friends. Looking at someone with the view of a profound practice requires an eye of compassion, requires nuance to see that even someone we don't agree with politically, or someone who, you know, has insulted us or ignored us, still has value, still is a multi-complex, multi-layered person that is that has Buddha nature, that is connected to all of heaven and earth, and hasn't always held those views, may not always hold those views, you know. The view of Mahamudra or Dzogchen or non-duality, you know, seeing how things are and trying to not engage in a dualistic way in reality and make more karma, more me-making that creates our suffering, that ties us further to the wheel of birth and death. This view is not easy to maintain, but much more joyful, much more free, when we see that everything is in a constant state of flux. Rather than being empty or nothing, it is the field of potentiality in which everything is arising, abiding, and dissolving. Everything is in a dance of interbeing, mutuality, exchange, change. And there is a lot of freedom in this view because it is not conditioned. It is not concretizing. It is not sticky. It's moving lightly, and seeing that everything is made of energy, made of light, in a state of flux. It's kind of blissful too, but it can also be terrifying to realize that you're not who you think you are. I'm not who I think I am. And this process of realizing the view could be very quick, could be very sudden, but for most people, it is the process of a lifetime, becoming free, extricating ourselves from the cocoon of selfhood. Yeah. So when we say emptiness, we mean fullness. Empty of what? Empty of a permanent, unchanging self, full of all of heaven and earth. So there is a temporary self that arises, a mind-body continuum arising based on karma and the 12 links of interdependent origination, arising due to ignorance and grasping and a misapprehension of reality. But there is also the presence of primordial wisdom, the seed of Buddha nature. So both of these potentialities are present in sentient beings. It's interesting in Buddhism, especially in Mahayana. So really Mahayana is all the foundational ideas are there present in Theravada. In Theravada, we call it not self. And we believe in the khandas, the skandhas. But Mahayana takes it a step further. It adds more spice, adds more flavor to these ideas, expands them, and takes the idea of not self towards an emptiness of self and other, and dependent origination. And in terms of like the way Madhyamika or Mahayana thought around, I mean, even within Mahayana, there's different schools, like the mind-only school, which is kind of the foundation of a lot of Zen teachings, and, the Madhyamika school, which is the foundation of a lot of Tibetan Buddhist Nalanda tradition schools. But even schools like Advaita Vedanta and Shaivism have some, I can't say they're the same, but they have, I would say the Mahayana Buddhist schools talk about emptiness as in the negative, in the sense of what is what is not there. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. Doesn't mean these things in the Heart Sutra. Doesn't mean there is no eye. There is an eye, right? We can see. But what we're seeing and how it works is not as solid as it appears. Even the way a bee sees the world or the way a dog sees the world is not the same as we see it. So what is seen, the eye consciousness, it's all in a state of flux and just not quite as solid as it appears. Whereas the idea of Hinduism, Brahma, God, the field of creation, it's describing the arising of phenomena in a more positive, leaning more towards existence. Whereas, Mahayana Buddhism leans more towards the, just a little bit more on the side of non-existence. But actually, reality, truth is what we're talking about. So we're just fingers pointing at the moon. The problem, of course, with the idea of God is that if you're not understanding nuance, then God becomes the all-powerful God, and becomes solid, and then self also becomes solid. So when people said to the Buddha, describe nirvana, he refused, because it is no solid ground, nothing to hold on to. In Theravada, it's described as the cessation of ignorance, but it's more than that, because emptiness is fullness. It's an understanding of, like it talks about how the Buddha could see people's karma, their past lives. He could speak all languages. When he spoke, people could hear him in their own language. It's a merging with the field of interbeing that is in a state of constant dynamism, which is why bodhisattvas can appear in the world just like a moon can appear in 100 bodies of water at once, but is still only a reflection of the moon in the sky. A bodhisattva who is realized can manifest in the world in countless forms, in countless ways, to bring people to liberation. Anyway, this is kind of more on the deep end, I suppose. But what does this mean for us? We understand things, we grasp at them. So it's important, this view, coming back to the view, understanding how your mind creates attachment and makes things solid, and catch yourself before you've gone into me, and centering in this me and grasping self, other, like, dislike, praise, blame, fame, infamy, gain, loss, pleasant, unpleasant. Being present and able to let go of grasping. Awakening is just at the tip of our nose, but it's our habituation for countless lifetimes is to grasp at some solid ground. I mean, even we grasp not just at ourself, we grasp at country, nationality, gender, race, religion. They become ideas we're willing to die for, which is kind of dangerous, because thoughts and feelings change. Like when they've interviewed people who survived suicide attempts, those people usually were in a state of mind that at the time was so painful they didn't want to exist anymore. But you talk to them a day or two after and they're like, well, that state of mind of not wanting to exist has passed. So the idea of taking a permanent action based on a temporary thought or feeling is dangerous. You know, I mean, well, based on that knowledge, you could say don't act at all, which is also stupid. You want to act from a place of wisdom, a place of embodiment, a place of integration, a place of compassion. But also understanding that holding rigidly to any belief system can be dangerous. You know, understanding that the truth is an unfolding, dynamic process. So recognizing the nature of your mind, dependent arising, spacious awareness, how things arise in this, just like how things arise, just like a lake, and a fish jumps out of the lake and then goes back. Thoughts, feelings constantly arise, abide, dissolve. But what happens is we get locked into one, and then it's a whole train of, you know, one thought and then another thought and then another thought, you know, and it becomes like a whole record, a whole story we're telling ourselves, you know, and where we've completely lost the moment. Then we've lost awareness. You know, we've gone into a story, a fantasy. And yet that doesn't mean that our thoughts and feelings don't need attention. You know, if we have complex trauma, or if we're being abused, or if we're feeling depressed, you know, all of those things need attention and have a relative existence. But building a whole identity based around those things can be limiting. Yeah. This wisdom is unborn, unceasing, like the sky, inexpressible, and yet it is the foundation from which all things emerge. This idea of emptiness as fullness, emptiness as potentiality, empty of a permanent, unchanging self, full of all of heaven and earth. But this idea of emptiness as potentiality became a source of goddess worship in Buddhism, you know, the womb of creation, and therefore the goddess, the great emptiness, the great expanse. Therefore, in Tibetan Buddhism, the female principle, not a female people, but a female principle which is present in both men and women. This potentiality became, the sacred feminine was represented as emptiness, and the sacred masculine was, or the masculine principle is probably a better word, because, you know, I'm not into gender polarity or the kind of new age idea of sacred feminine, sacred masculine, which can be very, it has its place, but it can be used by some people as a very reductive way of viewing ourselves. The sacred masculine in Vajrayana Buddhism is active compassion, active action, and the feminine element is the emptiness from which all things arise, and or clarity and emptiness. So the masculine element is clarity, is the fact that we can know things. I can know you, I can see you, but I also can know that you will change, and you are changing every moment. And therefore, I need to understand that my perception of you needs to be dynamic and needs to give you the space to unfold yourself beyond this moment. And actually, that's a kind of love as well, that wisdom of understanding interbeing and emptiness allows us to not oppress each other, to give each other a space, as Khalil Gibran said, let the winds of heaven make not a prison of love, but allow the winds of heaven to blow between you. Make not a bond of, like, you can, whether it's a friendship or a teacher and student or a parent and child, there needs to be space in the relationship for people to be themselves, for people to be curious, to grow and change, and for you to let them. Because it can happen in a family, like, oh, you're the difficult child, or you're the good child, you know, or you're the sensitive child. But to allow that person to grow and change and explore, and also recognizing the sacred presence in every person, you know. So in the Northern Treasures tradition, the Nyingma tradition, a lineage of the Nyingma school, there is a text saying homage to Prajna Paramita. This wisdom is unborn, unceasing. Its nature is like the sky, inexpressible. It is the foundation from which all things emerge. And there's so many texts by Longchenpa and so many masters in praise of Prajna Paramita. There's like thousands of verses of Prajna Paramita, the perfection of wisdom. But it's all really just pointing back towards your own spacious awareness. The seat of Buddha nature is in your own mind and heart, but your own mind and heart contains all of heaven and earth. And that can be scary, like, who am I? I mean, this is why, like, people who study philosophy just end up so confused. Like, I know that I don't know. And now I know how to think about not knowing. They're not sure of anything. When you ask yourself, who am I? That's like an infinite string. But it's not that we can't say, who am I? But what is important to remember is that it's a mystical experience that is hard to put into words. It is something that should be pursued with reverence and awe and joy, and without rigidity, and with a sense of humor and humility and kindness. And we should extend that grace to others, because others are in a state of unfolding also. And if we think that way, even about people that terrify us, that we wouldn't want to spend an afternoon with, these people are also in a state of unfolding. It's just a shame that they unleash so much violence on each other in the name of what they think is good or profitable, which is so heartbreaking. It does seem that our leaders don't really care about the planet or children or well-being or safety. They care about money, and even to the point where they're willing to destroy the planet in the name of this piece of paper. It's crazy. But giving into despair isn't helpful. So we have to do what we can on a local level, on a spiritual level, even on a political level, what we can to make a better world, a more loving world. But to do so without engaging too rigidly in ideas of that someone is perfectly good and someone is perfectly irredeemable, because even Trump has Buddha nature. But I'd say there's a long journey there. A long journey home. Yeah. Yeah. And if teaching like this is too esoteric, just remember, accumulate a great store of virtue. Do no unwholesome act. Purify your mind. Yeah. Do you have any comments or questions?
Well, it's a very nourishing talk. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's I was really reflecting on that teaching of emptiness and things coming together to create and falling apart, and that being ever changing, and then relating it toward people who we might find challenging or difficult to listen to, and how they too have this capacity for awakening, and that's really important to note or to feel as well, because it's the only thing I feel that will really change the state we're in, or that we're all in.
Yeah.
And the compassion that grows out of that understanding.
Mm.
It's like a difficult space to hold for particularly challenging.
Yeah. I mean, compassion doesn't mean that we just let people do whatever the hell they want. It could mean that we put someone in prison, or we depose someone, or take them out of office, and we hold them accountable. But it just means that we don't treat them like they treat us. We treat them with justice.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
It comes about in a very different way if it's through understanding or.
Yeah, it's not easy. Also, because we're when we're in a state of heightened adrenaline, and in that moment, it can be like when you've been through a lot of pain and someone has really harmed you. It's such a dangerous thing to keep hold of your humanity and not allow rage to slash and burn. Yeah. And, or, have that idea, like say you're a rape survivor, or, a particular group of people has done something horrible to you. It's very easy to hate all people of that variety, and make a generalization. It's such a challenge to keep hold of humanity and empathy, and like when you're in pain,
It's very hard to, like you were saying, about all the causes and conditions that brought that person
to where they are,
and those causes and conditions
everybody's
might create the new version of that person that's ever. If you contribute love, and perhaps it might create something.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I thought about this with I don't know whether I should raise that topic right now. Like, sometimes there's a particular group of people and they're like, we're so hard done by, and like, for example, say you're a person of color, and there is white people going, we'll just show white people kindness, and they'll realize you're not, you don't want to come and steal their home and destroy their way of life, and suddenly you'll all be friends and compassion will solve everything. But I think that can be a little naive. I think it's got to be much more nuanced than that. Like, there needs to be an end to othering. Like, they need to understand that immigrants or people of color are just like them, that their tears are salty and their blood is red, and they want a safe and secure country for their children. They're not coming to steal what you have. They're just running away from hell and wanting a good life, which is a basic human instinct, and that their feelings, their pain is just as poignant as your own. But is it the job of more oppressed people to constantly massage the egos and the fears of people with a lot of privilege? And I don't know, it's like, yeah, there's a bit of a, also, like, people with more privilege, like, if we're just massaging their ego and trying to assuage their fear, are they dealing with their own insecurity and fragility? Like, is you know, I guess compassion could also be saying, pointing out their wrong view,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, probably condemnation, othering, calling them deplorable, calling them a bigot probably won't help. But also just the expectation that it's the onus on the person with less privilege to teach and educate the person with more privilege and give their energy to these people who are not doing anything to fix their own lives. Like, yeah, there's like people also have to do their own work and their own healing as well. So it's a challenge. Yeah, dialogue, maybe dialogue. But also, yeah, people do have to do their own work too. It's complex, I think. Like, I think, for example, the crisis in masculinity right now, and some men are in legitimate pain for complex reasons, not just to do with feminism. But I think some of that pain has to be dealt with. The work of healing has to be done by men. You know, it's not just women's job to fix men. And it's not just men's job to fix women or provide for women. Like we both have to, we're both having issues created by ourselves and created by the economy and created by society. But I do, yeah, it's like, I can't just save men. Men also have to do their own work, you know? So it's like, yeah, it's a fine line too. Anyway, I'll turn this off now and